Hi everybody, so here's another video about one of the Ethiopian stock rifles that I ordered. I've ordered two, well actually three, but one hasn't arrived yet. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment, but this is actually the first of the two that I ordered. I bought this one from Classic Firearms. Most of them have actually gone through Royal Tiger, and you've already seen my video on one of those with the Kar98k. This is the Kar98 Mauser that I ordered, and so basically, let me kind of give you a quick overlook. So we've got a giant rack number here. The stock is obviously not original, but I just kind of threw it on there to complete the look. And some close-up of the condition on this side. And one of the things, of course, is that I did pay for hand select, and that was my first disappointment. Because as you can see, especially towards the muzzle end, there's really not much in the way of original finish left, and this stock doesn't look too great either. There is a little more towards the back, but even then it's really quite thin, as you can see here, and then I'll give you a view of the other side. It kind of makes me think that those people that say that when you pay for hand select, you don't really get anything. They just, grab something off the rack and call it good. Maybe that's true, or who knows, maybe this really is the best of the 10 that you pay for, but I kind of shudder to think what the others might look like if this is the best of 10. And the condition of the metal is actually a little worse than it shows on the video. I know I always say that, but I swear it's true. So that was kind of my first little disappointment with this, but it gets a lot worse as far as when I start to get into, cleaning it and getting it ready to shoot, because this wasn't sold as like a gunsmith special or anything like that. This was, clean it up, it should be ready to shoot. Which it did need a lot of cleaning. These are as filthy as the rest of them. I mean, you take it apart and dirt would literally be falling out of pretty much every crevice that it could be in. But the first thing that kind of drew my suspicion, by the way, this is not the original bolt, and I'll get into why that is looking at the back here. Let's see if I can focus it. So you see here, this is where the firing pin protrudes out the back of the cocking piece. This was actually basically, for lack of better terms, this was an innie rather than an outie, and that was something unusual. I never had seen that before, so I thought it a bit strange. But, without taking it apart, you don't really know what's wrong, so I thought, well, maybe they just, filed it down because there was a burr on the end or something like that. It could still be okay, but when I took it apart, this is what the original one looked like. I hope that shows up reasonably well. Let me try to get it to focus here. And you can see this is these little teeth that lock into the back of the cocking piece here are completely beat up. And so this was basically causing a lot of slop when you lock it into the back of the cocking piece. And so there really shouldn't be much play. They're machined such that it moves freely when you take it apart, but not that there should be a lot of wobble, and yet there was. And so this is the rest of the firing pin, by the way. Sorry about the focus. And so that's the first one, and I'll insert what a proper one should look like if I can find a decent picture. I don't want to take any more apart. So that was already kind of a problem, especially since I suspected it was causing excessive firing pin protrusion, which it was, because I did end up measuring it, and it was nearly twice what spec should be. So this was going to cause punctured primers. And I know some will say or argue that, maybe these are safe to shoot despite the punctured primers because these rifles are designed that way, but I guess I kind of look at that as, saying I can drive around with a bad wheel bearing all I want because I have airbags or something like that. So I needed to be replaced, and the Mauser firing pins are not the rarest things in the world, but they're not the cheapest things in the world either. And so at the very least, I figured that's worth my hand select feedback, but I figured, well, see how everything else plays out before I go there. And the bigger disappointment was actually the bolt. And so this is the original one that came out of the rifle. Let me see if I can get it to focus. And as you can see, that bolt head and face are actually broken. They're chipped away right there. Hopefully that shows up. If not, I'll insert some photos. But so this is what makes it really quite dangerous to shoot, and probably firing in this condition is what caused the firing pin to get beat up like that, I would guess. Seems like a reasonable guess to me. So this is already, now we're getting into, between the firing pin and the bolt body, assuming you find a strip bolt body, we're getting into well over $100 in parts that it needs, maybe 120, maybe 140, depending on, what the deals are like out there. So this is a pretty huge disappointment because this is, in a completely unsafe to shoot condition. So naturally, I reached out to Classic just to see what they can do for me. And I guess my mistake was to not include the photos in my initial email to them. I did hear back from them in pretty short order. I'd say within a day or two, which, that's nothing, doesn't leave that much to be desired, I guess I should say. But all they said was, oh, we're sorry to hear that. If you can send us some photos, we'll see what we can do for you. So that same day, I took photos of the bolt, the firing pin, and everything, and sent them off to them. And then I just didn't hear anything back for 2 or 3 weeks. It's just nothing. After that time, I tried calling them, but there was a recording saying that because of the Rona situation, they're not really able to take calls right now. So your only options are either chat or email. So of course I looked for the chat because then you could talk to somebody live, but there was no link for it and no button for it that I could find anywhere. So I figured, okay, well, I'll send them another email saying, hey, has anybody had a chance to look into this? And I still got no response for that either. I don't know if they've altered their recording now to exclude the part with the chat now, but it was there at the time. So I figured, okay, at the very least, what I could do is I could leave a review about these so that, anybody looking at these on the website, because these were still actively selling at the time, to, be careful because this is what you may end up with. And so I wrote a review. It was very respectful. I didn't swear. I didn't, call anybody any names. I just said what exactly as it was, that, parts came broken. The gun is not safe to shoot. And Classic really hasn't done all that much about it. And the review just never posted anywhere, and I thought it was a little strange. It just didn't show up. You get one of those little confirmation emails when you leave a review to, confirm that this is really you, the verified buyer. And I clicked all that and went through that process, and it just didn't show. And ironically, during this time, I kept getting emails, from Classic saying, oh, buy one of these pieces of history. They're fantastic. And I don't know what language they use to describe them. But this, by the way, is a Yugo refurb. You probably may have noticed that from the markings, but it was originally a German Kar98, I suppose. So now it's been over a month and I've heard nothing still. And so I figured, okay, I'll take matters into my own hands. I bought a new bolt body, put it all together, checked headspace and all that stuff. I still haven't actually shot the gun yet. I don't know, because given how cursed it is, maybe it'll just blow up in my face anyways. Who knows? But I'll get around to it probably, hopefully soon. I do have ammo. The bore on it, by the way, isn't terrible. It's not great by any stretch of the imagination. It's a little dark. It does have defined lands and grooves, and it does pass the bullet test. So the muzzle isn't completely shot out. So maybe it'll shoot okay yet. Don't know. I'll post an update maybe once that happens. So I guess the takeaway from this is, as far as, ordering from Classic goes, is, well, don't do it. But I've heard that for a long time about them, that they do people dirty. They've wronged so and so and this person or that person, and you shouldn't trust them. And I've shopped with them for quite a while. I hate to admit it now, but I've always had an okay experience with them. So I figured, oh, they've always been okay to me, and for most people they probably will be until they're not, and then you're out several $100s and they'll do nothing. And so basically my suspicion is that if you've had good luck with them, your turn is probably going to come, especially if you are into kind of the used and the surplus stuff. In the meantime, these particular ones have sold out, specifically the Yugo refurb Kar98s, but they still have a few other ones as well, like the 1933 model and some Spanish ones and some Belgian ones. And so I would definitely urge caution as far as, if you're thinking about buying one of those things, I would say don't do it. I wouldn't from them. I don't know that Royal Tiger would necessarily treat you any differently in this scenario. I'm not sure. I haven't, from what I heard, they probably wouldn't, but I know for a fact that Classic won't. And so I would say that, don't give them the opportunity to do the same thing, and just, yeah, don't buy.